Halfway through that 1 p.m. turn, I made the decision on the artillery that as long as its flanks are secured, it is pretty much invulnerable. As far as I can tell in the rules, there's no explanation, but at the very least I'd have to engage the other units. If I could engage the artillery directly or just move into it, I would say, yeah, it can be destroyed. Because I don't think it's reasonable that artillery could just stand there. I don't mind if it gets a shot, but it shouldn't be unable to be attacked. And the only way I could think around that is to allow you to move into it if you didn't have to move through a zone of control. Okay, so what do we see? Well, we see that right flank cav pushing forward, looking for a way to be used effectively. We also saw the Prussians engage in that big cav duel once again. And it didn't work out all that well this time. Largely, I mean, it wasn't horrible. I think they came out ahead overall, but I mean, there's a couple of Austrian routed units. But overall, I don't think they got the kind of gains they were hoping for. Meanwhile, things are looking pretty weak here on their infantry side. They didn't really do anything. It's just, I'm very worried about an Austrian advance over here on the flank. 2 p.m. Seeing some movement by the Austrians to screen against that cavalry action. The Austrians decided not to go forward with their infantry. That marshy terrain is just too scary, so they started pounding the Prussians with artillery there. But they did go forward over here and gain some definite ground. Over in the cavalry duel, this went heavily for the Austrians, actually, even though you see some routed units. Mainly, the casualty numbers added up, and the Prussians lost a huge string of units, a couple of which were captured. So now our morale for the Austrians is at 10, whereas for the Prussians it's only at 13. This wasn't a good turn for the Prussians. They also lost Pennevier. He was wounded. And the situation definitely looks like the tide is turning for the Austrians right now, even if that cavalry side still looks like it's a bit of a Prussian advantage. We'll see what happens, because the Austrian infantry more or less outnumbers the Prussian infantry on the side. Basically, what's in the center of that Austrian line is just as crappy as what the Prussians are facing with, although the Prussians have somewhat better artillery right now. But on both flanks, they're really outnumbered, although there are a couple of Prussian infantry units over here facing those Croatians. The Croatians did, yeah, they don't do a hell of a lot. They disorder at best, so unless you actually fight with them. Halfway through the 2:30 turn, the Prussian assault with their cav is not going well. It's getting broken up. On top of that, the Austrian infantry is doing a bang-up job smashing what's left of the infantry on that flank. Over on the other flank, the Prussian infantry had to advance to help cover up the weaknesses in the artillery position. You'll see there's only a gun there now. That whole formation in the center, well, what was once the centerpiece of the Prussian strength, is pretty much demolished at this point. And it's looking very, very likely that those Austrian units are going to come streaming over, just because there's not much there. The Prussians made a charge towards the Croatians in the back here. They decided against actually attacking because they couldn't do it in enough force. So those Croatians are probably going to dive into the lines, and we'll see what can happen from that. The only bright point for the Prussians is the fact that the Austrian morale is down into the range where they might get demoralized at the end of the turn. The Prussian morale is not quite that low. So there's some chance there. But otherwise, the Prussians look pretty weak at this point. Beginning of the 3 p.m. turn. Well, the Austrians close. They got beaten off over to the side here, but pretty much have finished whatever Prussian infantry are in place here. I mean, there's still stuff, but it's not in good shape. Routed some of it, chased it down. Over on the Cav flank, largely indecisive but bloody. We still got some routed Austrians off to the side, but we got some routed Prussians as well. The exciting thing, if anything's exciting in this, is both sides are in the demoralization range. Neither one failed their role, as it were. It's looking like both armies are going to be demoralized. A lot of Austrians, I think, got captured on this last turn. A couple of units. But I think we also we had some losses, no captures on the Prussian side. Their morale held better, or they died before they could surrender. It's looking like it's just bloody. I'm not sure what's going to happen here. I think the Prussians are ahead on victory points, so it's probably going to be a draw. Midway through the 3 p.m. turn, and the Prussian army is almost gone. Still got their cav down here that pulled back a little further. The infantry is down to these 3 units holding the line, and the cav is over here in much better shape. But to tell you the truth, the Prussians would have loved to have been able to just disengage at this point, because chances were that the Austrians would have demoralized before the Prussians do, and then the Prussians could recover morale based on the fatigue points, and maybe win the game that way. Unfortunately, they were engaged in too many places, and things just don't look good for them at this point. There's almost nothing left. They're trying to get away, but it doesn't look good.